views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Please welcome Deputy Borough President Marika Scott McFadden.
Good morning and welcome. Good morning. All right. Welcome to the Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr.'s annual State of the Borough Address. On behalf of the Borough President and his staff, I'd like to thank the Bronx Arts Ensemble Band, led by Greg Diamond, for their performance today. Let's give them a round of applause. Before we begin our program, let's take a moment to honor America with the singing of our national anthem and an invocation. Our colors are presented by the New York City Police Department Ceremonial Unit, and the anthem will be performed by Ms. Genesis Campos, a student from right here at Hero High School.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
And now, with our invocation, please welcome Reverend Naomi Tyler Lloyd, Senior Pastor of Trinity Baptist Church in Williamsbridge.
Shall we pray together? Great Sovereign One of the universe, God, we thank you for a new day, sunshine, fresh wind, and the signs of life all around us, for they serve as a reminder that even in the midst of confusion and chaos, division and deception, restlessness and recklessness, you still reign supreme. So we invite your presence here to enter our hearts and minds as we seek to live to our best potential to be your creation. May your power be the power we seek to lead and guide us in our endeavors. Continue to give our borough president wisdom and courage as he continues to serve with justice and integrity. And for each of us in this place today, Help us to live as the reflections of your grace and glory in a world that desperately needs you. This we humbly ask in your name as we trust you to do what is best. Amen.
You may take your seats. Today's event would not be possible without the gracious hosts here at Gompers High School campus, especially our friends at Hero High School, who have provided us with considerable hospitality and support in planning this event. Let's take a minute and hear from Ms. Kristen Cahill, the founding principal of Health Education Research Opportunities High School, or HERO High School. Ms. Cahill.
My name is Kristen Cahill. I'm the founding principal of Hero High, and it's my pleasure to welcome you today to the Samuel Gompers campus. I see some parallels between this building and the borough as a whole. Like the Bronx, this building has experienced many changes over the last few years. In 2011, the decision was made to phase out Samuel Gompers Vocational High School and grow 3 new schools in its place. These schools are the New Visions Charter for the Humanities II, Mott Haven Community School, one of the best organized and effective transfer schools in New York City, and my school, Hero High. Hero High is a new kind of high school where students can spend 6 years preparing for careers in healthcare and earning their associate degrees as well as their high school diplomas. I also see a connection between what I am most proud of about our borough and my school, because they come as the result of the hard work and dedication of people who have been here all along. At Hero High, 75% of students who graduated last year were college ready in English and math as measured by the Regents exams. Also, our basketball team made it to the city finals, our baseball team, and our girls basketball team to the playoffs. These accomplishments come directly from the hard work of our teachers and staff, the best of whom were hired directly from Samuel Gompers as it was phasing out. This speaks to the hidden strength of New York City educators, as well as to the deep roots of what is positive about current changes in the Bronx as a whole. I welcome you here today in the spirit of honoring the work of the past as we bring forth our best possible future. Good luck in the work ahead.
Thank you, Principal Cahill. And now we have an addition to our program. It is my pleasure to introduce and welcome to the stage Senate Minority Leader Charles Schumer, who's fighting for us in Washington.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here in the Bronx. I see all the great leaders of the Bronx here who do such a great job. You'll forgive me, I'm from Brooklyn. But I've always been a Yankee fan. And whenever we came to the Bronx, I played basketball for Madison High School in Brooklyn. Whenever we came to the Bronx, you beat us, including Gompers, when Gompers was a high school. But we weren't very good at Madison. Our motto of our team was, "We may be small, but we're slow." Anyway, it is wonderful to be here, and I want to say that I am so proud of Ruben Diaz Jr. as your borough president. What an amazing job he has done. The state of the Bronx is strong. We have worked together on many different issues, getting Penn Station available for transit, getting a new rail line through the eastern part of the Bronx, which is so needed, working hard to get some funding for public housing, which has been in such trouble, and making sure that Washington pays some attention to the Bronx and to New York. And your Congressman Jose Serrano has worked hand in hand with us on that. But the greatest thing about Ruben Diaz's leadership and about this borough is the unity you show. People from the Bronx come from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life. Some have lived here for generations, some are new immigrants. But we all work hard together. And when we're unified, we're strong. I wish I could say the same thing about Washington. There is far too much divisiveness in Washington. We are fighting it, your congressman and I will tell you this. I have always believed that the symbol of America and the symbol of New York should be the Statue of Liberty, not a big concrete wall. And we are fighting to make sure that happens. And so I want to once again congratulate all of you for working together, showing that unity is strength, showing that we can all work together, and the person who has led that all deserves our universal support and admiration, your great borough president, Ruben Diaz Jr. Thank you. God bless you. Dios te bendiga. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.
And now, here to recognize our distinguished guests in the audience today, please welcome our office's Director of External Affairs, Dirk McCall.
Thank you so much. We're joined by a large number of distinguished guests. First, Congressmember Jose Serrano. Our New York State Assembly Speaker, Carl Heastie. Bronx District Attorney, Darcel Clark. Westchester County Executive, George Latimer. New York State Senator, Jamal Bailey. New York State Senator, Alessandra Biaggi. New York State Senator Jose Marco Serrano. Our Bronx Democratic County Leader, Assemblymember Marcos Crespo. Assemblywoman Carmen Arroyo. Assemblymember Jeffrey Denowitz. Assemblywoman Natalia Fernandez. Assemblywoman Latoya Joyner. Assemblymember Victor Pichardo. Assemblymember Karines Reyes. New York City Councilmember Diana Ayala. New York City Councilmember Andy Cohen. New York City Councilmember Vanessa Gibson. New York City Councilmember Rafael Salamanca. From Brooklyn, New York City Councilmember Justin Brannan. Representing Governor Cuomo, Sophia Zayas, his Bronx rep. Representing Comptroller Tom DiNapoli, his Bronx rep Danielle Jones. Representing Congressmember Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Maribel Hernandez-Rivera. New York State Supreme Court Justice Doris Gonzalez. New York State Supreme Court Justice Lynette Rosado. New York State Supreme Court Justice Wilma Guzman. From the Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation, we're represented by Chairman Steve Kaufman and President Marlene Cintron. Bronx Public Administrator Matilda Sanchez. Former New York City Council Speaker Peter Vallone. Former New York City Council Speaker Gifford Miller. Our beloved former Deputy Borough President Aurelia Green. From our Borough Commissioners, our Borough Planning Commissioner Orlando Marin. NYPD Bronx Borough Commander Larry Nakunin. FDNY Borough Commander Deputy Chief Joseph Woznica. Bronx Director for City Planning Carol Samuel. Bronx Parks Commissioner Iris Rodriguez Rosa. Bronx DOT Commissioner Nivardo Lopez. Bronx Director for Commission on Human Rights Kajori Chowdhury. From our colleges, Bronx Community College President Dr. Thomas Signigby. Hostos Community College President David Gomez. The new president of Metropolitan College of New York, President Joanne Pissarro. President of Monroe College, Mark Jerome. From our health and hospitals, Christopher Mastromano, CEO of Jacobi. From Lincoln, Milton Nunez, Executive Director of Lincoln. From North Central Bronx, Christina Contreras. Representing the Bronx on the HHC board, Robert Nolan. From our cultural institutions, Deborah Cullen, the new president of the Bronx Museum of the Arts. Carrie Rabora Barat, the new president of the New York Botanical Gardens. Viviana Bianchi, Executive Director of the Bronx Council on the Arts. The new president of the Bronx Chamber of Commerce, Lisa Soren. From our brothers and sisters in labor, Joe Geiger, Executive Secretary Treasurer for New York City and Vicinity District Council of Carpenters. Bobby Murray from Local 1 and the president of the Bronx Board of Business Agents. Representing the Bronx Board, Local 3, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and also on the BOEDC board, Benny Arana. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dirk, and thank you all for being here. I would also like to take a moment to thank some of our partners who made this event possible. That would include the New York Botanical Garden, BronxNet, and NYPD. Our hashtag for today's event is hashtag SOTBronx19. Please use this to share photos, thoughts about today's events, and follow the conversation on social media. It's now my pleasure to introduce my partner in government, my friend, here to deliver his 10th annual State of the Borough Address. Ladies and gentlemen, our Borough President, Ruben Diaz Jr.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to the Deputy Borough President. Let's give Marika Scott McFadden a strong round of applause. I also want to just thank our U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer. Let's give him a strong round of applause for all that he does in D.C. and being with us here today. So a young man has been without work and is able to provide for his family due to the relocation of a factory to his borough and a job fair in his neighborhood. Years of dedicated activism means his commute will be made a little easier thanks to fair fares, and that his job will pay a decent salary thanks to the fight for the $15 minimum wage that began right here in the Bronx. A woman who once worried about eviction and the devastating impact homelessness could have on her family will breathe a little easier when strong rent laws help keep them in their home and prevent dramatic rent increases, while new tenant protections like the right to counsel have placed her on more equal footing with her landlord. A grandmother is able to spend her twilight years with dignity in the neighborhood where she spent her entire life. Her community bore witness to some of the borough's most darkest days, and thanks to new affordable senior housing, she will play a role in its rebirth. An independent bookstore opens in the South Bronx. Its proprietor follows her dream so that she might offer Bronxites a long-awaited space to not only purchase books, but to learn, converse, and grow closer to their neighbors. A teenager gets involved in politics for the first time, having been inspired by the hopeful words of a transformative candidate. Today, she carries a petition and hands out a flyer, and her activism jumpstarts a lifelong passion for civics and crafts a future leader for our city. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the opportunities that we are offering our residents through disciplined, forward-thinking government that welcomes new ideas, civic-mindedness, innovation, entrepreneurship, and excellence. We are a diverse, striving borough. The Boogie Down Bronx is home to 1.4 million residents. A quarter of us are under the age of 18, not too many here. Roughly 40% of us were born in other countries. 30% of us live below the poverty line, and 56% of us speak another language other than English. But our residents are more than simple statistics. We are a colorful kaleidoscope of men, women, mothers and fathers, families, gay and straight, people who have spent their entire lives here, and new immigrants alike who are looking to build a better life. You see, we believe in the American dream, and what we want is nothing more than a chance to prove it. It is government's responsibility to present us with the opportunity to do just that. Here, we are fighting for every child to have access to the best possible education, regardless of their zip code or the color of their skin. We are creating new jobs and building new housing so that when those children graduate and become adults, they can build their lives in the same communities where they came of age. We are working so that the most vulnerable among us have the opportunity to live in a home that meets the basic standards of dignity by demanding improvements to the reprehensible state of public housing in our city. You see, we are doing everything in our power to help our youth as well, to have a chance to live a productive, meaningful life, free from the senseless violence that can dim the light of our brightest future stars. We are raising the bar on what it means to provide citizens with the opportunities in every facet of life. Now, that work begins in our youngest grades. In December, just before Christmas, Fat Joe and I visited several schools as part of a new initiative to improve classroom performance and attitudes. Classes in 4 schools competed for new sneakers and were judged across one marking period, not just based on their grades, but on behavior, attendance, and other metrics that were put forward by the principals. When we arrived to visit the winners, we were blown away by what we saw and by the response. Now, while this program is not a panacea, what it did is that it motivated the students and completely transformed the learning environment in these schools. In one school, there was not a single behavior incident after the program began. In another school, get a load of this, a student broke down in tears in front of his class when he described his own personal improvement. He was getting 20s and 30s in his exams, and now he was getting hundreds. He doesn't stop there. He even apologized for bullying his classmates. See, he had proved to everyone, but most importantly to himself, that he could change his behavior. This is but a small example of what we've done to improve our schools. Since 2009, I've been able to allocate more than $70 million in capital funding to 443 school projects. That's nearly a quarter of my total capital allocation. We are demanding equity for all communities in our specialized high schools as well, and expanding computer science education at every grade. We must support all of our advanced learners, regardless of where they hail from. And we must maximize school busing options to promote increased access to gifted learning. You see, our youth need us to believe in them and help them prepare for the opportunities of their futures. We have also called for a renewed effort to offer vocational education in high school grades, and we are creating new paths for high-level career development. We have done this with the Bronx Private Industry Council, which matches high school and college students with internships with top employers across our borough. Officially launching this spring, the Bronx PIC teaches students soft skills and provides hands-on experience for future careers. I mean, these kids, they're not going around just getting coffee or making copies. They're learning real skills that will give them a leg up. And thank you to Judy Diamond, who is here in the audience. Judy Diamond, thank you for your leadership and the leadership you provided in this crucial endeavor. Together with Here to Here and the BOEDC, Marlene Cintron, who's here as well, we will be issuing a report on the PIC's initial success and future plans. And what we hope is that even more employers, students, and educators will join our efforts as we set an example for the rest of New York City. The future of our young people, it's not just in the classroom or at an internship. We need to work to protect our children from the dangers of the streets. We have done so much, all of us collectively, but there's still so much more that we need to do. That is why today I am honored to announce the founding of Camp Junior. This will be in memory of a brave son of the Bronx that we lost far too young, Lisandro Guzman Feliz. We were all devastated by this tragedy, which unfolded in full view of the entire world. And no parent should have to lose a child, let alone in such a brutal, heartless fashion. I mean, Junior was everything that we want our children to be. He was a good student, a member of the NYPD Explorers. He was kind to his parents and his neighbors, and his candle was dimmed too soon. But he can be a shining light for future generations. That's why starting this summer, we will give hundreds of Bronx kids a chance to learn by his example. This camp would not have been possible without the commitment of the Cuomo administration and the State Department of Parks. Camp Junior will take young people out of the city and bring them upstate to enjoy free recreation and educational programs, including an anti-violence curriculum, away from the pressures of the urban life in the summer, with fresh air, trees all around them. We could not have had a better partner in this project than the outgoing New York State Parks Commissioner, Rose Harvey, who helped shape the vision of Camp Junior and literally moved mountains to make this happen. I went to Camp Junior. I checked out the cabins. I even shot a little bit of hoops on the basketball court. I saw in my mind just how amazing this camp could be, how we could create an oasis for our borough's youth just a few miles north of the city. Camp Junior will be administered by the Fresh Air Fund and has the full support of Junior's parents, his mom, Miss Feliz, who is with us here today. Señora Feliz. When this tragedy struck, I heard from so many of you, so many people across this nation who were asking, how could you help the community heal? Well, the answer is simple. Help Camp Junior succeed. Our youth 18 and under are perhaps just 25% of the Bronx population. But make no mistake, they make up 100% of our future. That's why we must plan with them in mind. When the next expanding business offers new jobs to New Yorkers, why shouldn't our students be ready for every job there? Employers should be working with CUNY to develop curricula that can make that happen. I mean, think a sixth grader today should be able in 10 years to graduate from Hunter or Lehman College and step right into a great job right here in the city of New York. A student from Baruch should have a direct line to a career on Wall Street. CUNY students should have a pipeline to tech, healthcare, and other well-paying jobs. All industries, starting with city government and throughout the private sector, need to work harder to make career opportunities available to our CUNY graduates. The promise of a CUNY education should be the start of a career in our great city. And after you start on that path, guess what? Everyone needs a place to live. We've built thousands of affordable low-income housing units here. Since 2009, the Bronx has been home to more than $15.4 billion and 84 million square feet of total development. Nearly 60% of the more than 36,000 new units of housing were built in that time here in the Bronx. They were built affordable. And we must continue not only to build new housing, but even more importantly, we need to preserve existing housing units. We must promote equity and opportunity, not just in housing and education, but in all areas. That's why, as a trustee of the New York City Employees Retirement System Board, I will introduce a resolution mandating that NYCERS allocate double the percentage of its funds currently managed by MWBEs. See, my resolution requires that diversity increases until our fund managers better represent the diversity of our city. Here in the city of New York, 60% of its workforce are women, and minorities comprise approximately 55% of that workforce. Together, we will level the playing field at our pension fund. We must not only demand equality, but also a healthy environment. And no one has been more committed to resiliency and environmental planning as we all have been here in the Bronx. Climate change is real, damas y caballeros. No matter what some of the leaders in Washington might believe, and if we don't address it, what kind of world are we leaving behind for our children? We are not leaving this question to chance. Early on in my career, when I was in Albany, I authored the first law that created tax credits for developers who built green roofs. And as the borough president, I will not fund the project unless it has a green component. With On4 Solar, we built the largest solar farm in the Bronx on Commerce Avenue, with approximately 3,000 solar panels producing 1.1 megawatts of power. This is a major step in our efforts to power 1 million homes in this state with solar energy by the year 2023. This electricity is going to low-income households at reduced rates. The environment has always been my top priority. Projects like the Park Avenue Green in Melrose, which meets passive house energy standards, and the Bedford greenhouses where the residents are raising fish on the rooftop, are setting the national standard for environmentally friendly construction. In partnership with the State Department of Parks, our shoreline along the Harlem River has been rebuilt following the devastations of Hurricane Sandy, when strong floodwaters covered Roberto Clemente State Park. Today, new environmental measures protect the watercoast and the waterfront there, while new recreation facilities make this park even more welcoming than ever before. And by the way, we're going to officially open up this spring. I'll challenge anyone here to a little game of Skelsies. I'm still good. Good transit is crucial to our continued success. It is the lifeblood of our city. Expanded ferry service in Thrives Neck is welcome. And we are moving forward on the East Bronx Metro North expansion, thanks to the advocacy of so many people that helped make this victory possible, from shoppers in the Bay Plaza Mall to our elected officials here in the Bronx and those throughout the region. I see my good friend, County Executive of Westchester, George Latimer. Thank you, George, for your support, and all the electeds there as well. We must also focus new funding streams for our subways. Any money collected through congestion pricing, should the state do that, Mr. Speaker, must be earmarked for New York City Transit. I mean, why should our money go outside of the city of New York? I agree with Governor Cuomo. It is time to shake up the MTA and start fresh. Our city should have control, however, of its own transit system. For that matter, we should be exploring how we continue to have control of our bridges and tunnels as a revenue resource. I mean, this is not a crazy idea. This is not something that comes out of nowhere. We did have control of our subways before 1966, when there was a feud between a governor and a mayor. Sound familiar? That created the unaccountable train wreck that we have today. It is time to return control of the New York City Transit back to New York City. We must invest in our roads as well. The conversion of the Sheridan Expressway into a boulevard has begun, thanks to decades of activism by community leaders. We have created there new amenities in the area for the residents and visitors alike. Amenities funded by government are key to the quality of life of our residents. To this end, we have also broken ground on a new YMCA in Edenwald. This is a long-held community priority due to the vision of Speaker Carl Heastie We thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your leadership there. Come on, y'all, give it up to Carl Hasey, the Speaker. We are planning the renovation and revitalization of our beloved Orchard Beach. This is one of our borough's crown jewels. So far, we have raised, all of my colleagues in government here, we have raised over $60 million in government funds to renovate the historic pavilion. And the community planning phase of the project has already started in earnest. In the coming year, I'll be speaking to my colleagues at every level so that we can continue to do more. We must continue to fight crime humanely and intelligently. For 6 straight years, there have been less than 100 homicides in the Bronx. Thanks to the work of all of you in the community and so many more. And of course, a shout out to the NYPD. I know that Chief Nakunin is here. Let's give the NYPD a strong round of applause. We are not perfect, but working together, we are safer than we've been in many decades. And as we work towards a safe and just city, we must also continue to be vigilant against over-incarceration and aggressive prosecution. Let me be clear. We must close Rikers Island and eliminate cash bail. And if we're going to legalize marijuana, then the state must pardon and expunge marijuana convictions and ensure that marginalized communities have a chance to profit from the new cannabis market. Here in the city, this administration's ineffective and inconsistent behavior in regard to the opioid crisis is helping no one. Addressing this issue requires a comprehensive multi-agency effort that matches compassion with enforcement. We need service organizations to recommit to solving the opioid crisis rather than simply managing it. We need smart solutions like prevention, responsible prescribing, and diversion programs. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a citywide issue, and I commend my fellow borough president from Staten Island, Jimmy Otto, for helping to highlight solutions to this epidemic. And we need to secure the resources and services necessary to ensure that former addicts can remain on the right path away from abuse and addiction and towards a fruitful life. We have all been affected by addiction in one way, shape, or form, in one way or another. This crisis concerns all of us. For me, this is a personal issue. You see, I've watched my Uncle Danny fall a victim and overcome his opioid addiction. And I'm proud of my Theo. Theo Danny with us here today. Thank you, Uncle Danny. I'm proud of you, Theo. Years of strong advocacy from the community and elected officials have brought the Bronx a long way. We will fight for what we deserve. But don't get me wrong, we're going to continue to defend ourselves from injustice. We will continue to make the case that Mott Haven is not the best location for a jail. Let me repeat myself. We will continue to make the case that this neighborhood, Mott Haven, is not the best location for a jail. We have seen advocacy by the Diego Beekman community and plans by its residents to improve the neighborhood. I know this area well, not just from my days as the borough president, but also from my days as a teenager delivering Meals on Wheels at Diego Beekman houses. Somewhere there in Diego Beekman houses right now, there's a grandmother. Maybe she's getting Meals on Wheels today herself and is worried about where her next dinner will come from. She's also worries about her grandchild who she holds out hope that he'll stay strong enough to rise above the pressures of the streets. And so, what message is the city sending here? We're not going to accept this. That is why myself, Congressman Serrano, community leaders, community justice advocates know that we have a better location for this jail, adjacent to the Bronx Hall of Justice at the Family Court Building. Criminal justice reform experts all over say that we should have jails located next to courthouses for myriad humane reasons in the interest of justice. So why not here? I mean, nothing is set in stone. If they could change their plans in Manhattan and in other boroughs, why can't they change their plans here in the Bronx? This administration's priorities are entirely misguided. I mean, how can we spend millions of dollars to build a new jail in this neighborhood where the schools in this building do not have the resources that they need to succeed? How can we rush through the construction of a new jail with zero community input, yet we cannot figure out how to install chairs at PS 65's auditorium without a multi-year, multi-million-dollar process? A city that thrives is one that encourages all of its residents to take pride in and invest in their communities where they live. No intention to invest is more clear than when a tenant commits to their community by buying their own home. Our borough, unfortunately, has the lowest rate of home ownership of any of the 5 boroughs. Approximately 20% of Bronx housing is owner-occupied. We must make it easier, not harder, for middle-class New Yorkers to own homes in the Bronx and throughout New York City. However, some of our homeowners find themselves suddenly divested of their own home ownership rights with little, if any, notification from the very city that they call home. The mayor, and I say this because the mayor has proposed expanding the third-party transfer program to seize buildings from bad landlords. Now, I agree, bad landlords should be held accountable. I think we could all agree to that. However, the TPT program has been used to seize homes from minority homeowners in the Bronx and in Brooklyn. We need a wholesale review of this program before the city tries to continue to expand it. Resident leaders of 1600 Nelson Avenue, Ms. Isabel Adone and Ms. Wakidia Colon, are here with us today. These women are fighting a court battle for home ownership control of their homes. Please give them a strong round of applause for their self-advocacy, for whom I've stood up against this mayoral administration. Thank you, ladies, for being with us. My administration has demonstrated time and time again that housing rights for New Yorkers, whether they are renters or homeowners, are paramount. I mean, for without safe homes, what do we have? Now, with that said, what about the shameful state of our city's public housing? Many would say that the worst landlord in New York City is New York City, and I agree. In December, right before New Year's, I was going out for Sunday breakfast with my mom, my beautiful mother, Mami Bendición, and my family. I came upon a rotten situation at the Sonia Sotomayor houses in Soundview, what could only be described as a mountain of garbage complete with smells and putrid mystery juice had accumulated thanks to broken equipment at NYCHA's and NYCHA's ongoing lack of accountability. I took this video, and my video went viral. And just a few hours later, the garbage was gone. The residents at the development were able to breathe freely. And so in January, inspired by our success at Sotomayor Houses, we launched the hashtag Clean Up NYCHA campaign, All New Yorkers should use this hashtag to highlight NYCHA's failures to deliver for its residents, to push for a safer, cleaner, more livable public housing system. If social media shaming is the only way we're going to get results, then damn it, we're going to shame them. I mean, how does the city propose a new department to protect residents from bad landlords when the city is depriving its own tenants of their human rights to heat and hot water? Now, let's be clear. The disgraceful condition of NYCHA is a problem that goes back to decades and crosses all political lines. My office does everything that it can to help public housing residents in the Bronx. That's why I've allocated over $15 million in capital funding for critical repairs to Bronx developments, including the renovation at the Betances and Bronx River Senior Centers. We've also proposed changing the public housing law at the state level so that when NYCHA executives commit bad acts, the law is unambiguous that they are held personally responsible. In partnership with Assemblymember Marcos Crespo and State Senator Zelnor Amiri of Brooklyn, we will be introducing state legislation that gives NYCHA tenants reductions in their rent when they go without basic services. This bill would give them the same remedy that a rent-stabilized tenant in a private building would have. NYCHA tenants should be treated just as fairly as any other tenants in the city and the state of New York. Again, what kind of elected leadership are we under when a jail is being imposed upon a residential community working hard to strengthen itself, and yet they sweeten the pot for Amazon without a firm labor peace agreement, while stealing equity from homeowners, and where the city cries broke for our public schools' needs, but they can't find more than enough money to build a jail. Despite all of this, ladies and gentlemen, the Bronx is thriving. Almost 10 years ago, I gave my first ever State of the Borough address. I spoke about the needs of better paying jobs, to fight crime in our streets, encouraging new development of all types, and the need to unite as one Bronx. Many of you were there, including my family, my beautiful bride, Hilda, who's here, the First Lady. I love you, honey. My sister is with me here, retired from the NYPD, Sergeant Diaz. My sons were teens, and I had a little bit more hair, as you can see in that photo. That day, I laid out the beginnings of a conceptual master plan for our borough. I set a path for how we could all work in unison to make the Bronx even better, while shedding the outdated stigma that had dogged us for too many years. Our work over the past decade in the Bronx has had powerful and a tremendously powerful impact. I mean, think about it. We've cut unemployment rate by more than half, down to some of the lowest numbers that we have ever seen. More Bronx residents have jobs today than at any time in our borough's history. With a newly empowered Democratic State Senate majority, we have already enacted legislation on reproductive rights, gender identity, LGBT rights, gun safety, voting reform, sexual abuse, the DREAM Act, and more. In the coming days and weeks, we will move forward together on vacancy decontrol, closing the provincial rent loophole, strengthening labor laws, and a host of issues that for too long have languished in Albany due to Republican obstruction. As the Trump administration moves our nation in the wrong direction, it is up to New York to set an example that smart, progressive policies can be effective. See, good government creates opportunity for people to flourish throughout their lives, from elementary and high school education, to outdoor activities, to higher ed, to workforce development programs. New York City needs adequate funding to do all of this to help our residents thrive. And when I'm on the topic of funding, it is one element of what makes the census so important here in New York. Without full participation in the 2020 census, ladies and gentlemen, our city and state will not see the political and budgetary representation that we deserve. New York State could lose 2 congressional seats in the next reapportionment, one of which will almost certainly be here within the 5 boroughs. A strong showing can keep our influence and relevance in Washington, D.C. So make sure that all of you are counted. Make sure your families are counted. Make sure that your neighbors are counted. That's what really matters. And no one should be frightened or afraid to participate in the census. That is why I will not answer any question asking about my citizenship status. And I encourage all of my fellow citizens to do the same thing. After all, remember, we are a sanctuary city, and those principles must be the guide of our participation in this census. We are the greatest city in the world, not just because we are the epicenter of the financial, tech, healthcare, education, legal, theater, and culinary worlds. We are the greatest city in the world because of the millions of people that make up this beautiful city. We are a welcoming, tolerant place. We embrace the immigrant experience, understanding that Emma Lazarus' great poem, The New Colossus, it wasn't about a war, but it was about the welcoming Statue of Liberty. Everyday New Yorkers can do a lot of good for themselves, for their families, their communities, and our great city when they are given the opportunity. And we have done just that here in the Boogie Down Bronx. Why shouldn't our example be followed all over the Big Apple? Our example shines for everyone, from up-and-coming artists to aspiring athletes on a basketball court at the local playground. A city where the rent is no longer too damn high, and where we celebrate our diversity and trust each other despite our diverse backgrounds and our perspectives. We reject and fight against the tide of hatred and bigotry and authoritarianism brewing throughout the world. For it is an open, democratic society and city that creates opportunity and allows all of its residents to simply pursue happiness. New York must never, ever lose its authenticity and flavor. Those of us who came of age here recall when the block looked different, when housing was affordable, when creativity flourished, birthing great artists like James Baldwin and Martin Scorsese, to Basquiat, Keith Haring, to the Ramones, Hector Lavoe, and Boogie Down Productions. A time when New York was truly a place that if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. The challenge of our time is to provide a chance and an equitable city while keeping New York's soul, a collection of our hopes, love, and creative endeavors alive, well, and burning strong. For all New Yorkers need is a chance. I would like to recognize, once again, those who have persisted and thrived and when given that chance here in the Bronx. To the youth participants of the Bronx Private Industry Internship Program. To the resident leaders of 1600 Nelson Avenue. It is people like Curtis Craig, a man who went from being homeless to an apartment of his own, thanks to a job at Fresh Direct. Folks like Ruth Briselia, who couldn't be with us here today, but she called me earlier and said that she's not feeling well, she's in the hospital. But this is a woman 67 years young who was able to stay in her longtime home in Crotona Park thanks to our efforts. People like the young NYPD explorers. Individuals like Noel Santos, owner of our borough's only independent bookstore, The Lit Bar, who is bringing books to the Bronx. In his second inaugural address, a man whose leadership, integrity, and intellect we all profoundly miss these days, former President Barack Obama, laid out the case that I have made this morning. President Obama said, "We are true to our creed when a little girl born in the bleakest of poverty knows that she has the same chance to succeed as anybody else because she is American, she is free, and she is equal, not just in the eyes of God, but also in our own." Ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, this is the Bronx and the New York City that I want to live and lead in and continue to work together with all of you to strive towards. 2019 is going to be our best year yet. Thank you all. God bless you, and God bless the Bronx. I think the Assemblywoman, Carmen, ladies and gentlemen, Carmen Arroyo has a little something for us here today. Let's give it up for the Assemblywoman, Carmen Arroyo. You should understand that she does this stitch by stitch with her own bare hands. And this is a map of the Bronx. Thank you, Carmen.
Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. held his 10th State of the Borough address at Hero High School. He jumped right in and discussed the improvement of education in the Bronx. Since 2009, his administration has given nearly $70 million in capital funding to 443 school projects.
We are demanding equity for all communities in our specialized high schools as well, and expand the computer science education at every grade. We must support all of our advanced learners, regardless of where they hail from. And we must And we must maximize school busing options to promote increased access to gifted learning.
The borough president also brought up NYCHA, which has been under fire for keeping their residents in poor living conditions. He says it's time for them to be shamed, even if it's through social media, encouraging everyone to use #CleanUpNYCHA.
And I'm going to work hand in hand with the borough president on our proposal to protect NYCHA residents. If you are not getting full service, why should you pay full rent?
He also spoke on his continued fight on not having a jail built in the Mott Haven section of the Bronx, and rather let the community continue to thrive with businesses and schools.
Being a DA that's responsible for prosecuting crimes on Rikers Island, a lot of the violence that happens is during the time when inmates have to be transported. So the less transportation, the better. And to me, if it's at the courthouse, it'll be better.
I'm very excited, very happy, to see kind of like the history and the trajectory of the Bronx, where we started, where we've been, and where we are right now, and where we're soon to go. I always say to everyone, it's all about the journey, and we just heard about the journey. And I tell everyone that the Bronx is going through a renaissance, and this is proof that we're up and coming and that we're going to make it happen.
It's important that we no longer measure our success by how far we can get away from the Bronx, or else things will never improve, and we will leave the gates open for people who are not from here to develop our community, and we will lose culture in turn.
The speech was well received, but what brought everyone to their feet was the announcement of Camp Jr. in honor of Lysandro Guzman Feliz Jr.
I am honored to announce the founding of Camp Jr. This will be in memory of a brave son of the Bronx that we lost far too young, Lysandro Guzman Feliz. We were all devastated by this tragedy, which unfolded in full view of the entire world. And no parent should have to lose a child, let alone in such a brutal, heartless fashion.
Junior's mother, Leandra Feliz, was in attendance and said that the camp is necessary to save other kids' lives and that she is pleased that her son's name will live on.
That's all what I want, to keep my son's name alive.
The borough president closed the speech by reminding Bronxites to participate in the 2020 census next year without fear of disclosing their citizenship. He stressed that participation will only keep us relevant when making laws in Washington. For BronxNet, I'm Veronica Guiti.